Hey everybody, this is TCG Productions here. Today in this video we are going to be doing some upgrades to my 1993 Gateway 2000 8046 system. First, we're going to be upgrading the RAM. The system currently has 8 megabytes of RAM and we are going to be upgrading it to 32 megabytes of RAM. And then after that we are going to be swapping out one of the hard drives, probably going to be swapping out the Seagate ST41650N, also known as the Imprimis 94601-15. I've also seen references to that drive known as the Imprimis 94601-12. We're going to be swapping that out with a Seagate ST41650N hard drive. Yes, if you watched my previous video, this hard drive was mentioned, probably shown a little bit. And if you've watched previous videos on my Gateway 2000 system series, you know the last go-round I had with one of these hard drives was an epic failure that concluded in that drive being torn down and autopsied, and it was determined that that drive had a head crash that dragged on for way too long. So, but no, this drive is good. I have had this drive attached to a much more modern system of mine. And I have run a media verification, and the drive seems to have passed with flying colors. So I only heard it ka-chunk a couple of times, so probably found a couple bad spots. So, but overall the drive seems to be healthy, knock on wood, or the functional equivalent thereof. In this case it's a mouse pad that's sitting on top of some form of probably compressed wood or another. Anyways, and then after that we are going to be installing IBM OS 2 Warp 3 Connect Blue Spine. And not only that, I'm going to make a valiant effort to take image backups of the floppy diskettes before they get used in the installation process for the first time, because this is, or well, was a shrink-wrapped, still boxed copy of IBM OS 2 Warp 3 Connect Blue Spine. I've long since taken the shrink wrap off the box, but I have not yet opened the floppy diskette packs. So, there's been a fair bit of prep for this, making sure I can image those diskettes, write them, read them, stuff like that. I've got one of my systems set up with a copy of IBM PC-DOS 5, a very clean copy of it at that, so that way I have a clean environment from which to load the XDF diskette, from which to load the XDF diskette driver software. It's a TSR, or Terminate and Stay Resident driver utility, that extends the BIOS floppy diskette services to allow the reading and writing of XDF formatted diskettes. Now, XDF formatted diskettes, XDF stands for Extended Density Format, and it is able to cram up to about a little shy of 1.9 megabytes per diskette. And it does this with some unique formatting tricks to get that capacity out of a diskette. Now, if you do some looking on this, you'll find that there is a kind of an unofficial format known as XXDF, or Extended Diskette Format, and that manages to cram like I think 3.8 megabytes onto a single, I think 1.44 megabyte high density floppy diskette. So it is it's definitely, it does some weird tricks to get more capacity out of a diskette, because typical FAT formatting for a diskette results in 1.44 megabytes usable capacity, even though the unformatted raw capacity of the diskette is 2 megabytes. So anyways, and because it goes into these weird encoding and formatting tricks and whatnot, you need to have the XDF Terminate and Stay Resident diskette driver running in order to read these diskettes. So anyways, got a clean copy of IBM PC-DOS 5 set up on my Dell Dimension 2400 system on a third hard drive. So that way I can, and I've also got some XDF reading and writing tools on there, and hopefully I can take backups of all these diskettes before they get used in the installation process for the first time. So anyways, let's go ahead and move things around a little bit. Behind me over here, we can see the Dell Dimension 2400 system. It's currently booted up into its installation of Windows 2000 Professional Unofficial Service Pack 5.1. And last night, whenever I was trying to get PC-DOS set up on this thing, I had a bit of a goof-up moment, and I inadvertently erased the partition table from the primary boot drive in this system, and with it, my Windows 2000 install. Fortunately, no big deal, because I do take disk image backups of all of my systems containing live data, this one included. And it was about 10-15 minutes to boot up into Clonezilla. Hey, the clock hit the corner there. To boot up into Clonezilla and restore the disk image that I have saved for this system. So, disaster averted. Now, over here, on this system right here, we have a copy of Memtest 86 version 4.0. A copy of Memtest 86 version 4.0, because right now the system has its 8 megabyte memory kit installed, and I wanted to be sure that the memory that I was removing from the system is in good working order. So, as we can see here, it's run 3 or 4 passes. It's about to finish up this one and start the next. And it's got its cheerful little success message down here. Pass complete, no errors, press escape to exit. Yeah, Memtest 86 Plus version 4.0. It does correctly identify the system as having a 486. It doesn't know the level 1 or 2 cache sizes. And it says the system has 7,808K of installed memory, which is close, but not entirely correct. It's close in the fact that that is almost how much extended memory this system has. It's also got 640K of base, and it's also got 640K of base memory and 384K of extended memory, and then everything above that is what Memtest 86 is counting, I believe. So, I could do a little bit of math. It's going to be 8190. I could do some math. You can do some math. So 7808K. It's got 8192K installed. We're going to be upgrading it to 32768K. So, yeah, first thing I want to do is I want to upgrade the memory to 32 megabytes. And then we'll rerun Memtest 86. And hopefully this passes, because if it doesn't, this project is on hold until that can get resolved. So, anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and shut this system down. And I'm going to go ahead and shut this system down, heave this thing up onto the table, pull the case off, reposition the camera, get everything set up so that way we can get in here and swap out the RAM. Okay, I'm back. I've got the system shut down, case opened up, everything positioned. There's a plastic guide piece that mounts over here that has guide rails for full-length expansion, for full-length ISA expansion cards. Expansion cards that you typically wouldn't find on systems oh, this is magnetically shielded. Expansion cards that you typically wouldn't find on systems much past this point, and even then, if we hand over and have a look at the selection of expansion cards in here, you can see that they are all comfortably fitting pretty much within their slot length. Now, if we were to move on into extended ISA territory or workstation class systems and accompanying hardware, we would start to see SCSI controllers that would come out to about here, maybe here. If you had a very, very high-end SCSI controller, high-end graphics adapters, stuff like that. So, but this system does not have such hardware in it, and therefore those guide rails pretty much go fully unutilized. So anyways, these are currently the 8 megabyte. This is currently the 8 megabyte memory kit. So each of these modules are one megabyte. And you'll notice each of these modules has 3 chips on them. And this third chip here makes up the holds the parity information, because these are 9-bit wide parity SIMs. And so there's a parity bit there. You have your 8 data bits, and then you have a 9th parity bit. And this was a form of an early form of on-the-fly error, data error checking in computer memory. And what would happen is, if there was a parity error, basically if the memory had become corrupted, there would be a mismatch between the data in the first 8 bits and then the 9th parity bit. And a parity error would be detected, and this could be handled in a number of ways. The software running on the computer could halt, it could crash, it could issue a warning, the system BIOS could detect it and halt the system, stuff like that, because memory corruption is a very bad thing. And I've got an upcoming project, or well, an upcoming how-to video that was brought about by recovering one of my video editing master archives that had been corrupted by faulty memory as the archive was being created. So, anyways, we got to swap these out, and then we have some dip switches located elsewhere on the motherboard that need to be reconfigured to tell the system that we have upgraded its memory to 32 megabytes. So these modules are going to come out like this. There's a tab on each side. Press those tabs out, and the module comes down at about a 45-degree angle, and then I can pull that module out. Now, memory modules, and as we can see here, the memory module, these are Gold Star branded modules. And LG, I think, would end up buying them, or Gold Star would end up buying LG. So, anyways, these are 70 nanosecond modules indicated by the -70 at the end. But yeah, each of these modules represents 1 megabyte of usable memory capacity. So, go ahead and eject the rest of these modules. Now, I'm having to work around not only the tripod and camera, but also the cabling in the system, because all the expansion cards are still installed and the system is still very much cabled up. And so, and the pins on these, in these SIM sockets, or SIM slots, depending on how you define socket and slot, they do not have a lot of spring tension behind them, and so it's not really ejecting the SIM on its own, which I suppose is a good thing, because 8 megabytes of memory, even in 1993, would not have been cheap. In fact, 8 megabytes of memory, and yeah, let alone 32 megabytes of memory. 32 megabytes of memory in 1993 would be probably be about as much as 32 gigabytes of DDR5 high-performance memory today. Because this stupid AI craze has managed to drive DDR5 RAM prices insane, and it doesn't help that Micron has lost their collective minds and actually exited the consumer RAM, DRAM, and NAND market. But that is another topic entirely that I refuse to touch at the moment. So, anyways, these are 70 nanosecond modules, once again, manufactured by Texas Instruments in Japan. Singapore TM497EU9-70 9619. So 19th week of 1996. So yeah. And as we can see, going by the witness marks that would be visible if the camera would focus. Yeah, this module has been installed before, probably a few times. couple times at least. And so installation is a reverse of removal. Now notice how one side of the SIM here has this little notch and the other side does not. This is a form of keying to ensure that you don't accidentally install the SIM upside down. So that SIM I just inserted correctly. The chips are facing up and it easily seated into place. Now this SIM here, if you tried to install these incorrectly, you'll be able to, you're not going to be able to slot them, well, you'll be able to slot it in, but the keying will stop you from actually socketing the SIM in incorrectly. And socketing a memory module incorrectly on any computer really is how you let the magic blue smoke out of everything. And we really don't want to do that because, as has been explained in videos past, this is a very, very, very rare computer. A one-of-one configuration. At least whenever you look at it in terms of systems surviving to this day. I have found evidence of another system just like this in some form or fashion, but it was an image search result that was dug up out of the bowels of a Facebook photo cache. So I was talking to a friend about this earlier, and these systems, I don't think Gateway 2000 built very many of these systems. I think these were a special bid to order option where these things were pretty much only built on demand, especially for 1993. If you were buying a system like this in 1993, you probably had some very specific requirements, because by 1993 extended ISA would have been a thing. And I think same for the Visa local bus. So it's odd that someone would order a system like this back in 1992, 1993, but as we can see here, the fact that this system exists means somebody did just that. Somebody built this system. Somebody ordered a system with this system core from Gateway 2000 in 1993. So I'm going to go ahead and put the speaker back in to its holder here. And then I'm going to try to put the speaker back into its holder correctly. Not slice the Jesus out of my fingers in doing so. There we go. And it just clicks into place. And this little cable dangling here is the hard disk activity indicator LED that I unplugged from the SCSI controller down here in an Adaptec AVA-1515 that has both of the SCSI hard drives in the system plugged into it. Now we need to reconfigure some jumpers to tell the system that we have upgraded its RAM to 32 megabytes. Now these are pretty heavily obscured because we have a myriad of cabling in the way. Here we go. Primarily this big SCSI cable. So evict that out of the way just a little bit, hopefully without cutting it. And here we go. We have a game port cable right there. So we have two banks of dip switches here. We have dip switch bank 1 and 2, SW1 and SW2 on the motherboard. Now according to the documentation that I can find online for this motherboard, for the 8 megabytes of RAM it had installed, on dip switch bank 2, switches 2, 4 and 5 should be on. And yeah, switches 2, 4, and 5 are on. And for 32 megabytes of RAM, we need to change that so only switches 2 and 4 are on, and switch 5 needs to be off. So, what I'll do, I'll grab a very tiny little flathead screwdriver, 2.0 sized. I'll just reach in here, find dip switch bank 2, and switch. Oh, come on, camera, stop defocusing on me. Am I going to have to put you in manual focus? I think so. There we go. So, we've got dip switch bank 2 right here, and then switch 5 needs to be off. So we'll locate switch 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, come right up to it, and turn it off. So now dip switch 5 is off, and we have now reconfigured the system for 32 megabytes of RAM. So what I'll do next is so now what I'll do next is I'm going to take the camera out of manual focus so that way I don't completely mess up the next scene. Zoom it out, and yep, and then let's see. Just to make the SCSI chain happy, I am going to plug the SCSI controller back in. I know this card was a pain to plug in. I'll pull the card. I'll pull the card off camera and verify that I actually did plug that back in correctly. But now the obvious next step is going to be to power the system up and boot back into MemTest 86, and also verify that our system configuration is correct. So we'll be back. Alright, we're back. I've got the system plugged back in. I did verify that the SCSI controller was appropriately plugged into its cabling, and I also went ahead and connected the SCSI cable to the external tape drive. Only reason being is because I have the SCSI controller configured to not terminate the SCSI bus at itself, because that the external SCSI tape drive is configured for termination, and so is the hard disk on the far end of the internal cable, the one up in the penthouse portion of the case. And that is actually the drive we're going to be changing out, but I'm getting about 3 steps ahead of myself here. So yeah, we got the 32 megabytes of RAM installed, we have the system reconfigured, I have my MemTest 86 floppy diskette ready to go. So without further ado, we're going to fire it up and have ourselves a little smoke test. Input signal out of range? Really? Slip my MemTest diskette into the drive, since I did hear it do its seek test. And we've got a problem. I heard it do its double beep, which indicates a post failure for some reason or another. Let's see if I can get the monitor to cooperate. Should be. I think one of my monitors, I've got two of this exact monitor, and I think one of them was able to do it. One of them was able to run that resolution, and the other was not. Clearly this is the one that isn't able to, that I'm misremembering. So I'm going to shut the system power off, swap monitors, and we'll be back. Okay, take two. A little different monitor with different firmware. Do the trick. Yes, it will. Okay. Awesome. We have a keyboard failure. That's probably why I didn't pass post. 15104K extended, which is not correct. Okay, well this is kind of annoying. Looks like I have a 16 megabyte memory kit. So I reconfigured the dip switches for 16 megabytes, and sure enough the system came up with 16 megabytes. Now I reconfigured the system as if it had 8 megabytes of RAM, and then I reconfigured it for 16, and this is what happened. So yeah, we've got a 16 megabyte memory kit, but now MemTest86 has started up, and we will let it do its thing and run some passes on this system. So yeah, that's annoying, but not the end of the world so far. So we'll be back once I'm going to set the white balance to something sane, because the next steps, well, not yeah. So yeah, I'm going to let MemTest86 run some passes on this system, and we'll be back. Alrighty, we're back about a couple of hours or so later, and MemTest86 has done 4 passes, I think, and is currently running the 5th pass. And as we can see, we get our cheerful little message down at the bottom: pass complete, no errors, press escape to exit. And so we'll do exactly that. System will reboot. It looks like I plugged in the hard drive activity LED upside down. Actually, just never plugged it in at all. How about that? There we go. So now we're going to boot up into Windows 95 here and verify that we have 16 megabytes of RAM showing up in the system. Oh yeah, this is something Windows 95 likes to do. It'll say error, unsupported data configuration, and halt. So I either have to hard reset the system or power cycle it and cold boot the system. And tell it we want to boot normally. It's giving us that prompt because it didn't start, because it didn't manage to boot last time. And of course it didn't manage to boot last time because who knows. Alright, obviously the mouse isn't set up, so I'm just going to escape through that. Oh, I have a ground loop in my speakers. How awesome. There we go. Wait for all this stuff to start up. It says Windows memory 15.1 megabytes free. Just because I can, I'm going to see if I can't configure the mouse to do something interesting. Configure this camera's exposure to not blow the picture out so badly. sysinfo. Okay, apparently this is a DOS utility. I actually end up locking up the computer. Oh. And see, this is what I mean about cooperative multitasking. It's cooperative until something decides that it's not going to be cooperative. Okay, system information is telling us that we have about 16 megabytes of RAM installed. It says the operating system is MS-DOS 7, which used to be expected for Windows 95. And it's telling us that the BIOS is dated January 15th, 1988. So we're going to take the shutdown option and power off the system. Yeah, as I said, cooperative multitasking is cooperative until something decides not to cooperate, at which point it's game over for your uptime. So, anyway, oh, there we go, knocking the tripod all around. Okay, anyways, Windows 95 is telling us that it's now safe to turn off our computer, so we'll do just that. So now what we'll do is we will get ready to swap out the hard drive in this system. So we'll be back. Alrighty, and we're back. Got everything set up, got the camera repositioned, and now we're ready to start clearing a path to get the hard drive out of the system. We're going to be swapping this upper hard drive. Seagate ST41200NV, also known as an Imprimis 94601-15. That's how it identifies itself in all of the utilities that I've used on my newer system that I had both of these drives attached to while I was performing backups and imaging, because I went through the effort to boot that system into Clonezilla with these drives attached and take full image backups of their contents. So, just in case something goes sideways and a Windows install goes all kinds of kablooey, well, I can always hook everything back up and restore that disk image. So, anyways, obviously we're going to need to unplug the power cable from the drive and the SCSI cable. Now, I think as far as configuring the new drive for this system, it should just be a swap. It should just be a plug-and-play swap, because it looks like the new drive, the incoming drive, is already configured for termination and already has its SCSI ID set to 0. So this drive here is configured identically, SCSI ID 0. Yeah, SCSI ID 0, and it's configured for termination. It has a termination resistors installed. So yeah, the same procedure applies as last time for getting this drive out of here. To get the hard disk cage out, you need to get all 4 screws that hold the power supply in out of the system. And there's a little shelf located directly underneath this power supply that it can sit on. Make sure those screws are nice and tight, so that way when this power supply does let go, like right there, that shelf doesn't fall and a power supply goes careening straight to the floor. So I'll lean the power supply over like that. Some of its cabling will hold it in place and out of the way. And this power supply is dated the 24th of April 1992. So anyways, with the power supply out of the way, now what I can do is there are 4 screws on the top of, there are 4 screws on the top, on the very top of this case that retain. There are 4 screws on the top of this case that retain the hard disk, that retains the hard disk cage. So the hard disk or hard drive cage literally hangs from the top of the case and is not supported in any way other than by these 4 screws whenever it is fully installed. Now this makes it this makes it kind of precarious to get this hard drive cage out of the machine. These front two screws aren't so bad, but I am going to leave one of these in just so that way there is some support. But once I undo these back 2 screws, then it gets a little bit precarious, because by that point the only thing that will be keeping this hard drive cage up is the back of the 5 1/4 inch front panel bay expansion cage right here. That's all that's keeping this hard drive cage up. And this hard drive is very heavy. It's about 10 pounds. So yeah, I'm holding on to the back of the drive cage. All 4 screws are out, so I'll temporarily slide it forward just so that way gravity keeps it in place. And then once it is, all 4 screws are out, I'll take this drive, slide it backwards, down, and out of the system. And just like that, the hard drive is out. So, this hard drive right here, this is going to be coming, this hard drive right here, this drive will be coming out of the system. So, I'm going to go ahead and get my RAM wrapped back up in here. So there's 4 screws that hold. There's 4 screws that holds this hard drive into this hard drive cage. There's 2 on the side right here. There's 2 on the other side, and then we'll be able to just slide the drive right out of the front of the hard drive cage. Now, this hard drive cage, for those of you who have not watched the previous videos in this series, and if you haven't, I very strongly recommend you pause this video and go watch those other videos right now. Yes, right now. But this hard drive cage can accept up to 3 different configurations of hard drives. It can accept, this is one of the 3 possible configurations it can accept. A single full height 5 1/4 inch hard drive, and this is the configuration that has been in place for the longest time. So we'll just pull the drive, set it aside, and then we'll go ahead and take this new hard drive that's coming in, and slide that into place, and then I'll go ahead and screw it in. So the other two configurations that this hard drive cage can accept, one of them is two 3.5-inch half-height hard drives. One of them is two 3.5-inch half-height hard drives. One mounted right side up on the bottom of the hard drive cage, and the other mounted upside down from the top of the hard drive cage. Now this system, whenever I initially commissioned it, originally had a 428 megabyte Seagate IDE hard drive. And I ran that hard drive. The reason I had that hard drive installed is because this system's BIOS, it attempts to do CHS translation, but it can't. It's got broken CHS translation. So if you're using any hard drive that is over 528 megabytes, you cannot use the standard interrupt 13 routines that this system's BIOS ships with. Alright, all 4 screws are in. Then, and it's just a matter of, well, doing the same thing again. But this system's BIOS's interrupt 13 routines are only good up to the 528 megabyte limit. Past that point, you must use alternate routines for handling hard drives bigger than 528 megabytes, because the system's the translated CHS routines that this system's BIOS ships are broken. Alright, new drive. This is fiddly. Alright, new hard drive is up and into the system. And then this is the most fiddly part, is getting this hard drive cage remounted after reinstalling it in the system. And all it takes is just getting one screw back in there, just thread it in a little bit, and once that one screw is in, the hard drive is pretty much safely installed in the system. 2 screws is even better. And then, of course, once I start tightening those screws down, we'll definitely be in the home stretch. But to use hard drives greater than 528 megabytes in this system, you have to have some way of replacing the interrupt 13 routines that this system's BIOS ships with. So there exist several solutions. You can boot from a hard drive manager type. You can boot from hard drive management type software that patches over the interrupt 13 routines with ones that are able to support translated CHS. You can do this from something such as a floppy diskette. You can install what is known as drive overlay software. And drive overlay software quickly got the nickname drive mangler software, because, well, if something ever went wrong with your drive overlay software, it typically resulted in very mangled data. Data that was so mangled that you will not be able to recover it, period. And then you could use, there were various add-in BIOSes that you could install. You could upgrade your system's BIOS. There were some aftermarket BIOSes available for some select systems that would have a lot more features and working CHS translation. Or the option that I took here was to purchase an add-in controller card, in this case the Adaptec AVA-1515, which has its own BIOS that replaces the Interrupt 13 routines that the system's BIOS ships with. So that is why I'm able to use large hard drives in the system, and that is very definitely comparatively speaking. So anyways, new hard drive is installed, and now I'm going to tip the power supply back up and into the system and begin mounting it back in place. Once you get one screw threaded in, you're good to go. 2 screws on opposing corners is even better. Once you get 2 screws in, you're pretty much in the home stretch here. Now, if you get one of these hard drives, do not be surprised if whenever you just plug it into a power supply and turn the power on and make the supply start up, if the hard drive just sits there and does absolutely nothing other than have a single solid red light blink, other than just display a single solid red light. These drives, depending on how old or new they are and what firmware they are running, they will not spin up. They will not spin up unless they detect that they are connected to a SCSI controller. I don't know why that is, that's the way it is. So I'm going to need to slide the hard drive cage forward just a little bit here so that way I can actually plug in the interface cabling. And if I need to, I'll loosen the screws holding the hard drive itself into the hard drive cage and slide it forward so that way I can plug in the power and SCSI cabling. There we go, power cable's plugged in, and SCSI cable's right down here. I know you can't see it very well. And SCSI cable is now plugged in. So there we go. SCSI cable is plugged in, power's plugged in, and apparently I just bumped the mouse and turned the screen on my Dell Precision 220 workstation, idling behind me in the corner. So, yeah, new hard drive is installed. We'll go ahead and power the system up, see what happens. Alright, got the system plugged back in. Here we go. Smoke test. Alright, I hear both hard drives spinning up. (16 megs of RAM). Now the BIOS here during the post bears a copyright of 1985 to 1990. Here we go, Seagate ST41650, installed as drive C. Checking the floppy drive for a diskette. And that's pretty much what I expected. Now I do have a copy of Windows Workgroups 3.11 installed on the CDC 94191-15, aka the Seagate ST41650N, but because this is installed as drive D, I need to use an alternate bootloader to actually trigger the system to boot from that drive. And while I was playing around with these XDF formatted diskettes and reading and writing them and whatnot, I corrupted and overwrote my plop boot manager diskette. So yeah, the data's still there, it's intact and everything. I just don't have anything to make the system boot from it, short of, well, rewriting that diskette or reconfiguring the drives. So I could swap the SCSI ID 1 jumper around. You know what, let's try that. Okay, I think I swapped the correct jumper around. We're about to find out. Okay, both hard drives are coming up. There we go. Checking the drive for boot diskette. Nothing found. And we're now booting up into Windows for Workgroup 3.11. At least jumping up in MS-DOS. Now, Windows has no problem being booted in an alternate method, such as with a plot boot manager diskette being used to trigger the boot from the D drive. Both operating systems will think that they are both operating systems, from either one's perspective, will think that they are running from the C drive, but that doesn't actually cause any problems. So let's see. Let's look at MEM here. We've got 445K of conventional memory free, and we have about 12. Yeah, we've got a total of almost 13,000 kilobytes of free memory. So let's go and jump up into Windows here. We got a system error telling us cannot read from drive D. But we can get up into Windows. So this will end your Windows session. Yes, it will. Once we jump back out here to DOS, type MEM to give the camera something it can focus on. And now, I'll shut the system down, swap the SCSI ID jumper back around, and we'll go from there. Alrighty. Here we have IBM OS 2 Warp 3 Connect Blue Spine Edition. Blue Spine includes DOS and Windows application support, and it comes with a bonus pack. I went over this a bit in my last video, but I found this on eBay probably about March of this year, I think it was, and it was brand new in the box, sealed. Still the shrink wrap on the box and everything. And the floppy diskettes, as I mentioned before, they are still sealed, brand new, in the unopened diskette packs. So, yeah, just kind of wanted to go through. I mean, I've had a look at the box's contents, but not in any great detail. So, top rips off, blank cardboard interior. First thing we see at the top here is registration card for OS 2 Warp. Business reply mail. IBM will pay postage. Wonder what happens if I try to fill this out and send it. Will it get sent back? Or will I actually get a letter from IBM? Thank you for purchasing IBM OS 2 Warp. Please mail your completed registration card today so you can receive information on future product announcements and special promotional offers. Please answer the following questions and return this card. And then they want to know everything about you. So, first name, last name, company name, street, suite, apartment number, city, state, province, country, postal code, telephone, extension, and fax number. And then all kinds of information. I'm not going to read through all of this in any great detail. You can feel free to pause the video if you want. We have a 486 processor. We do have a CD-ROM drive. 600 plus megabytes for sure. The two drives in this system together, about 2.2 gigabytes. How much RAM is installed? 16 megabytes. Wish it was 32, but do you use a modem? No, we haven't had a landline since 2017. There's a network installed here. Standard TCP/IP. What other operating system? Plenty of Linux, so I guess you could count that under Unix. What applications are installed? How many employees? What is your preference? So, yeah, IBM just wants to know everything about you. We have a license information booklet. It's printed on the thinnest paper money can't buy. 11 printed pages. 13 if you count the 2 blank ones at the end. A licensed customer needs to call for support. Tells you the facsimile or fax number and the address, programming specifications, statement of limited warranty, license info, program specifications. Tells you all kinds of stuff. Might almost be worth it to go to a print shop and see if they have a scanner weird enough to accept these non-standard format non-standard format prints and scan them non-destructively. Customer service and support for OS2 Warp. This number is required when calling for service. I don't think anybody at IBM will answer anyways, since it's been 30 years since this thing's been released. Offerings may vary outside the USA. So, customer service and support. Customer support for OS2 Warp. Again, feel free to pause the video if you want to read this. And then we have a user's guide to OS2 Warp. Actually very nice cover printing. And this has actually survived very well for being in the box for just about 30 years. Of course, once you get inside, the paper is textbook thin. And it's all black and white. 400 pages exactly. I'll order additional books. Then we get a cardboard separator, and then we get the IBM bonus pack. It is a box within a box. So OS2 version 3. It's literally a box within a box. IBM Works, online access, and more. And then we get, what is this? Installation instructions and whatnot. First edition, January 1995. Tells you how to install it, tells you what comes with it, nothing special. A half-page IBM program license agreement for the bonus pack. And then, this is interesting. They give you a notice to users of Internet services. This really, it really takes you back to look at this. Notice to users of Internet services. You are about to embark on an adventure that spans the globe. Information can be accessed across cultures and countries, or countries and cultures. These sources of information belong to many different organizations, companies, governments, and people around the world. Certain internet services may contain language or pictures which some individuals may find offensive, inflammatory, or of an adult nature. Such contents are the sole responsibility of the internet service provider. We do not endorse such materials and disclaim any and all liability for their contents. So, and then we have the sealed bonus pack diskettes. There are 5 diskettes here in pack 1. This read first envelope contains a license program or a portion of that program. Please read the program license agreement contained in this package. If you open this envelope, you agree to the license terms. If you do not agree with them, you should promptly return all materials, including the unopened package containing this program, and your money will be refunded. Yeah, they are still sealed after 30 years. I just hope they haven't been erased. So that's pack 1 of this diskette series. Pack 2, 2 diskettes. CompuServe Information Manager for OS/2. CompuServe has not been around in a very long time. Diskette Pack 3, IBM Works. And Diskette Pack 4, more IBM Works, 4 diskettes this time. Diskette Pack 1 is the Installation, Utility, and System Information Tool. So, and then all of this goes back in the box. And we will have a look at that in a bit once we get OS/2 up and running. So that goes on top of that. Another cardboard separator. And then some more information. We have a little pamphlet here, installing OS/2 Warp on an Aptiva. And then if you unfold it, it tells us your IBM Aptiva computer came installed with Microsoft Windows 3.11. Before you begin to install IBM's new OS/2 Warp, please call the OS/2 Technical Support Team. Their direct support telephone number and other information are provided in the customer service and support brochure that came with the OS/2 Warp package. So, I don't know why that is. I've never installed IBM OS/2 Warp on an Aptiva. And then we have an Adobe font offer here. They want to sell you all kinds of very dated fonts. Adobe will pay the postage on this if you mail it, apparently. Yeah. Get your Adobe Value Pack. Featuring all kinds of very dated fonts from Adobe Wild type. So we have the Adobe Variety Pack. And then they want to know first name, last name, middle initial, what format you want, payment method, card number, all that kind of stuff. And then we have another pamphlet. We've got 3 more pamphlets here before we actually get to the diskettes. Important information about your diskettes. The OS/2 installation diskettes and bonus pack diskettes have been created with a special process called Extended Density Format, XDF, which formats the OS/2 files and bonus pack files onto their respective diskettes. This new technology speeds up the installation process. This new technology is not supported by DOS or earlier versions of OS 2. You can only use OS 2 version 3 dir and XDF copy commands on these XDF diskettes. All other diskette-related commands might provide inaccurate information. Note, these command limitations do not apply to the OS 2 installation diskette and diskette 1, because those diskettes were not created using XDF. And it tells you instructions on how to read these XDF diskettes. Tells us how to back up our XDF diskettes. It says we must do so after OS 2 version 3 is installed. We're going to try to do that before we install it. And this just tells you how to make copies of the existing diskettes. So, what I want to do is create image backups of the diskette's contents. And then it gives you a big list of stuff. Big list of common questions concerning DOS and Windows application support. Feel free to pause the video to read this at any time. And then we get our IBM Program License Agreement for OS 2 version 3 with WinOS 2. So this is concerning the Windows application support. Again, feel free to pause the video. And then we get on to the actual OS 2 Warp installation diskettes, and there's a lot of these. So let's see, we have the installation diskette, and then there's 5 diskettes after that. Diskette pack 2 contains another 6 diskettes. Diskettes 6 through 11. Pack 3 contains diskettes 12 through 17. Oh well, contains 6 more diskettes. And then pack 4 contains 7 diskettes, starting with printer driver diskette number 3. So, we got a lot of diskettes to feed the system tonight. And that doesn't include the bonus pack diskettes. So, what do you say? We cut open the first pack of diskettes. Snippy, snippy. What do you say? We cut open the first pack of diskettes. Well, let's get this show going. if my scissors would bother to cooperate with me today, which it looks like they don't want to do. Yep, there we go. Smells like new diskettes. So, installation diskette, and then followed by diskette number 1. First time these have ever been handled outside of the packaging and outside of the factory. I like how they have already set the Write Protect tab to the write protection mode. So, yeah. We may be able to get through this whole installation without ever unwrite protecting a single diskette. That would be awesome. Now if it prompts us to set any of these diskettes back to write enabled, then I'll back up that diskette and then set the write enable, and then set it to write enabled. So here we go. First diskette install, first diskette in. Here we go. I'm going to eject the diskette because this thing is being weird again. There we go. OS 2 up at the top. We have our Microsoft compatible serial mouse. We're ready and waiting. Turn some more lights off in here. Alrighty. Remove the diskette from drive A, insert the OS2 diskette 1 into drive A, and press enter. Alright. Write protection is set. We have diskette 1 going in. Hey, 1987 to 1994. Loading, please wait. While we please wait, I turn the exposure down more than a little bit. It still might be a couple notches too high. If you see Christmas lights in the background, you are not hallucinating. It is December 30th. Tomorrow's New Year's Eve. So, this video is not going to be up until the end of January, beginning of February 2026 or thereabouts. But if you're watching this, hope your New Year's was great. Hope it went safe and well, and look forward to seeing you in 2026. Okay, our blinking cursor went away. Hey, there we go. Loading system files. Please wait. Alright, to begin the installation, select one of the following methods, then press enter. Easy installation is intended for most users of OS 2. The system makes decisions for you based on your current computer setup. Press F1 now for more information. Or we have the advanced installation. Advanced installation is intended for experienced technical users. You must make the decisions about your computer setup. Press F1 now for more information. Select Easy Installation if you want to let the installation program install OS/2 on drive C and make all of the installation decisions for you based on your computer's current hardware and software. During the Easy Installation process, you will be asked to verify information that appears on screen and indicate the type of printer connected to your computer. A pre-selected group of OS/2 software features will be installed on your computer for you. If you are experienced at installing operating systems, select Easy Installation. If you do not want to continue with the installation process, press the Escape key to exit this help. Then press F3 to exit the installation program. A command prompt will be displayed and you may work on your computer without installing OS/2. To return to the installation program later, type exit at the command prompt and press enter. Okay. Select Advanced Installation if you want to customize how OS/2 will be installed on your computer. This customization includes installing OS/2 on a hard disk other than the first disk in the computer. Installing OS/2 on a drive or partition other than C. Installing OS/2 in a logical drive. Using the HPFS file system. Selecting specific software features of OS/2 to install rather than the pre-selected group. Or installing OS/2 so it can be used with Boot Manager. And then we get the same blurb. We're going to select Advanced Installation, because I do not want this thing clobbering my Windows for Workgroups 3 install. Okay, OS/2 will be installed on drive C. If you have multiple primary partitions set up on your hard disk, select option 2 to verify that the correct partition is active. It says if you select option 2, the F-disk screen is displayed. When partitions on a hard disk are modified, all data in those partitions is deleted. You should back up all necessary data before continuing. I'm going to continue, because I have very thorough backups. I have 3 different backup methods. Okay, it's a good thing I did this, because this would have absolutely clobbered my Windows install. Okay, we are back. About 13, 14 hours later, thereabouts. I did manage to get everything figured out, at least on a preliminary basis. So, to turn several hours of troubleshooting into a short, sweet, and to-the-point description, for some reason, the OS/2 setup program will only show whatever hard drive is on SCSI ID number 1 as a target installation drive. So I did a few hours of troubleshooting, checking, swapping SCSI IDs, swapping drives around. In fact, I even went so far as to take my Seagate ST41650N hard disk and swap it back out for the Seagate ST41200NV, and even clone, or actually more specifically restore the disk image that I took of the ST4766NV to the ST41200NV, and that did not make a difference. So slept on it last night, and then this morning I decided to swap out the ST4766NV and put the ST41650N hard drive in its place, and I duplicated the configuration. One of these drives is set. I duplicated the configuration, so the ST41650N is set up on SCSI ID 1 and is not terminating the bus. The ST41200NV is set up for SCSI ID 0 and is terminating the bus. So if I jump out to a command prompt and launch the F-disk program here. As we can quite clearly see here, we have an empty partition that fills the entirety of the accessible space on the ST41650N hard disk. Actually, we don't even have a partition, we just have blank space. So, no partition is marked startable. Press any key. So we'll go ahead and break back into the installation program here. We will tell it we want to perform an advanced installation. And this is about as far as we got last night. Yeah, I had to drag Theseus back up because while I was trying to figure out what was going on, I thought it was detecting some weird partition table, but apparently it's not. Because whenever I disconnected both hard drives from the system and started the OS2 installation program, it gave me that same message about finding a partition table. So I would consider that to be a bug. Now, this is a bug that could have been found and fixed in later revisions of the OS2 installation diskette series. It could have been a bug that only existed on the installation diskettes and not the CD-ROM copy. But regardless, it is a bug. So, but yeah, I also found out that if I jumpered my hard drives, if I jumpered either hard drive for a SCSI ID other than 0 or 1, the controller would not recognize drives. And I don't know if that's simply because the controller just simply doesn't assign drive letters to hard disks with IDs other than 0 or 1. I'll have to check the documentation on the Adaptec AVA-1515 controller. But I think I recall seeing something about that where it would not assign drive letters and it would not install Interrupt 13 services for any hard drives with IDs other than 0 or 1. So that made things a little bit more complex. So I did, of course, did all the usual stuff, verified that the bus was being terminated appropriately at both ends. I think I've said this before, but I have a tape drive. I have a Sony SDT5000 tape drive connected to the external SCSI port on this system. And the only reason I have it connected is so that way it can electrically terminate that into the bus, because I do not have the controller itself configured to terminate the bus. That has to be done externally. So anyways, now it looks like we're making some progress, knock on wood. So it's asking us, preparing the hard disk is a two-step process. The first step, partitioning, defines one or more partitions on the hard disk, and then the second step prepares the partitions to accept data. If you select option 1, one partition, which takes up the entire hard disk, will be created. If you want more than one partition on the hard disk, select option 2. If you need assistance, refer to the OS2 documentation for examples of partitioning the hard disk. So I'm going to go ahead and take option 2, which is going to put us over in the, which is going to bring us up into F-disk. Partition with 35 megabytes minimum must be set installable. Press any key. So I want to install the boot manager. So we will create that at the start of the free space on the disk. And then this 1341 megabyte block remaining at the end of the disk, I'm going to create a partition, primary, unformatted, have that be at the beginning of the disk, and then I'm going to set this as the installable partition. Enter our name up to 8 characters, OS2 Warp 3. Installable, primary, it is unformatted, and it is a 1341 megabyte partition. What is the startup values? Default, blank, timer, yes, timeout 30, mode, advanced. Quit without save. So, There we go. I want to save and exit. Now I have a notice here that says the hard disk partitioning is complete. The system must be restarted so that the partitions can be recognized during system installation. And then it tells us to swap the diskettes, remove diskette 1, insert the installation diskette, and press the enter key. I don't think the automatic restart works, so I have to do that part manually. Now, if you are installing OS 2 and you have any diskette in the drive other than the installation diskette and you attempt to boot from it, this is what will happen. It gives you two error messages, sys01475 and sys02027. So that's what happens when you try to boot from an XDF formatted diskette. It just doesn't work. So I'll put the correct diskette back in the drive. I think the next step is going to be to format our newly created partition. I do hear the hard drives clicking a little bit. Alright, installable drive selection. And installation drive selection. So, it says OS2 will be installed on drive C. So, I'm going to take option 2 here. So that way we can go ahead and get it into F disk. Gives us a warning about modifying partitions and changing drive letters. So we do have our partition here. I'm going to set that installable and accept. Alright. Says remove the diskette, insert diskette 2, and press enter. Okay, I think I mentioned this. This might be a problem. This, I don't know if it's the motherboard or the system or what's going on, but this thing does not reliably detect diskette changes. Okay folks, you're not going to believe this. Well, you are going to believe that I did manage to fix the diskette change problem that I was having with this system. You're not going to believe how I actually managed to do so. How I managed to do so, you might ask? By letting the smoke out of the multi-IO card in this system. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I let the smoke out of the multi-IO card in this system. So I was having I was doing some low-level hardware testing. I was having some problems. This has been something that's been going on for as long as I've had the system up and running. Where it would not reliably detect disk change events. And anything that depended on the system detecting, on the multi-IO controller detecting a disk change event, where I physically eject and insert another floppy diskette, would not work at all properly, as you just saw in the previous segment of video. So, so for a kind of sort of high-level-ish overview, on the floppy diskette connector, pin 34 is the disk change line. This pin, pin 34, indicates to the floppy diskette controller whether or not a diskette change event has occurred on the drive. And I'm not exactly sure how it works as far as it being pulsed on and off and whatnot, but whenever the drive is being accessed, this disk change event needs to be pulled, this disk change line needs to be pulled low, so about less than 0.2 volts or so for a logic level 0, because this line by default is pulled high to 5 volts. So I was noticing that anytime the system accessed the diskette drive, pin 34 was not being pulled low. So what I ended up doing is I tried different I didn't try different cables. I know the cable I've gotten here is good. I tried the cable on a known working system with a known working diskette drive and Super I/O controller. I tried different diskette drives, tried to see how the diskette drive itself pulled the disk change line low, and my results were coming up inconclusive until I plugged the floppy drive cable from this system into my Dell Dimension 2400, its motherboard, and its known working diskette drive, and measured the voltage on the disk change line, pin 34, while the system was accessing the diskette drive. And then I came back over to this system, plugged everything back in, and what I did is while the system was attempting to access the diskette drive, I took a flathead screwdriver and shorted pin 34 to ground, and just to see if I could fake out the disk change line. And about 2 seconds later, I heard the all too familiar electronic silicon snap, that distinctive snap where you know something has just gone wrong. And as soon as I heard that, I immediately shut the system down. And then I smelled it, that all too familiar smell of that burnt electronics smell. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it other than acrid. It's like rotten onions, but acrid. Like there's no way to describe it. There's no way to describe it. If you haven't smelled it, I can't really communicate to you what it smells like. If you have smelled it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I was like, oh no, thinking that I just killed the only good multi-IO card I have here, because I have another multi-IO card that doesn't work because the traces are corroded. So I even tried that, and no such luck. So I pulled the card out, looked for anything obviously damaged, burnt, broken, melted, anything like that. Didn't find anything. I was like, you know what, let's just put this thing back in here and see what happens. So I put it back in, didn't hook anything up to it, powered the system up. Got through post fine, obviously complained about not being able to seek the floppy diskette drives, and so I shut it down. Hooked up some more, hooked everything up. Hooked up the serial port, the game port, and the floppy drives. Powered it up. It worked. Managed to seek the A drive. B drive didn't seek because I didn't have the cable connected to it. Shut it down. Hooked everything back up, including the IDE controller cable going to the optical drive in the system. Hooked up the SCSI controller cable, hooked everything back up, powered it up. It got through post just fine and happily booted off of my IBM OS 2 Warp 3 installation diskette. So went through that, loaded diskette 1 when prompted, and went through the screens that you saw me go through before we got stuck at the transition to diskette 2. And whenever it prompted for diskette 2, I ejected diskette 1, inserted diskette 2, and hit enter, and here we are. It is now telling us what file system I want to use. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select the high performance file system instead of the fat file system. And now it is going to format the installation partition. So that would be that about 1.3 gigabyte partition on that 1.3 gig partition that we created on the ST41650N hard drive. As you can hear there, it was formatting the partition. Now we are back to loading system files. Please wait. Now I think we are copying the OS2 files to the installation partition. And here we go. OS2 installation is officially underway. Time for diskette 3. Last diskette, diskette 5 from the first floppy diskette pack going in. Alright, that's the first pack of diskettes done. Diskette 6 going in now. Just packed up the installation diskette. Okay, remove the diskette from drive A, reinsert the installation diskette in the drive A, and press enter. Okay, now I'm reinserting diskette 1. Okay, now it just straight up says, remove the diskette from drive A and press enter to continue with the installation. And it looks like we are rebooting the system. Now, if this thing goes ahead and boots up off of drive C and into okay, so what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to power the system down. Okay, we are booting OS2 Warp from disk. That is quite an interesting noise that hard drive is making. Oh, we have video and a mouse. We have a mouse and a very out of adjustment monitor, it looks like. OS2 setup and installation. Initializing installation program. Please wait. We have a mouse. Okay, let's verify. Yep, a 1510, 1520, 1522, no printers attached. CD-ROM device support. Other. Okay, locate country and keyboard are both set to United States. We have a serial pointing device. We have serial device support installed. We have an 8514A or compatible. ATI Mach 8, so it did correctly identify our display adapter. We do not have a secondary display. We're not running a multi-head configuration. No AP support, no PCMCIA support. For CD-ROM device support, just says other. I'm going to assume that these are going to be for various proprietary drives that require proprietary controllers or special handling. So I'm going to select both of these. We have no printers attached, which is correct. We do want some multimedia device support. So we have a Sound Blaster Pro. I'm not sure which one it is. We'll find out. Sound Blaster Pro OPL2. Well, we'll find out. We have no printers attached, and it has correctly identified our SCSI adapter. 1510, 1520, 1522. I'm looking specifically for a 1515. I don't think I'm going to find it here. Do not install a default printer, and install everything. Documentation, fonts, optional system utilities, tools and games, OS2 DOS and WinOS2 support, multimedia software support, serviceability and diagnostic aids, and optional bitmaps, it says. Alright, we're just going to install everything. Okay, I guess we have to have those installed since we're installing OS2 DOS, OS2 DOS and WinOS2 support. Go advanced configuration for that. Oh, okay. Just recognize we have a D drive. We'll install the standard WinOS2 desktop. We can copy it from an existing desktop. Insert OS2 diskette 7 into drive A. Alrighty. Transferring files to your hard disk. Please wait. And back to the diskette swapping marathon. Make sure that is, yep, diskette number 8. Another minute, another diskette. Alright, diskette 11. Last diskette in this particular pack. So we've got more diskettes to go. This right now this window shows going through diskette 15. But the pack I hold in my hand has diskettes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 diskettes in it. Okay. Diskette 12, first diskette out of the next pack. Pack 3. Going in. Next diskette, number 13. Alright, on to diskette number 14. And time for another diskette. Looks like this is the last diskette in the series. Diskette number 15. I see two more diskettes in here, and they're both labeled printer driver. Here we go. OS 2 setup and installation is updating the system configuration. Chug, chug, chug. Remove the diskette from drive A. Insert the printer driver diskette 1 into drive A. It looks like now we're copying the printer drivers to disk. We have 5 printer driver diskettes. Oh, okay. Remove the diskette from drive A. Insert printer driver diskette 5 into drive A. So that means I'm opening the 4th diskette pack. Insert the diskette with the following label into drive A. Display driver diskette 1. That is probably going to be whatever immediately follows this other driver diskette. And then some 8514 font files. Alright. More diskettes. Searching for programs. Please wait. Probably so that way I can add them to our desktop. And now we're chugging to the other hard disk. If you see any of those folders with the label pool show up like it did just there, those pool folders are where I ended up dumping the contents of all the installation diskettes for a particular software package to, because of this system's very long-standing Castle Wolfenstein? Because of the system's very long-standing problems with a broken or non-functional disk change line that I fixed earlier today. Please insert any compact disk in drive E and wait until the unit is ready. Okay. How about there we go. What about a music CD? I know you can't see it, but it's labeled. It's a Maxell burned CDR labeled Tranquil Melodies. This is actually a CDR I got in a CD player, a Sony CDP-550, that one of our neighbors was about to throw out. But ended up intercepting it at the 11th hour. And this is the CD it had in it, this burned CD with Tranquil Melodies in it. Okay. I think the drive is ready. I do have the speakers hooked up to the sound card, but I don't have them turned on right now. I find it interesting that it told me to insert any compact disc and wait until the drive became ready. Well, actually, specifically, the unit. I wonder if that's because of external SCSI and parallel port compact disk drives. I actually have an external parallel port compact disk drive. I forget what it's called, but I've either got it kicking around in here somewhere, or I've got it in storage. I should do a video over it. It was sitting in the employee break room with a note on it that said free. And it looked to be pretty much complete in the box. So the backpack CD drive, I think, is what it's called, if I remember correctly. Okay. OS2 setup and installation is complete. You will need to shut down and restart your system in order for changes to take effect. Select OK to shut down now. Installation note. Okay, I thought I connected the audio. I may not. No, I did connect it. There's just a mysterious ground loop in the audio system somewhere. Even though the computer and the speakers are both connected to the same power strip, UPS, and branch circuit breaker. There we go. The connection, one of the connections on these speakers is flaky. To ensure a successful install, we may have installed certain defaults. Some systems may default to VGA and no audio. To change this, shut down and restart, then use selective install in the system startup folder. See the user's guide to OS2 for details. So, I'll eject all media from all removable media drives. And I'll reach around the tripod. And we'll go ahead and click OK to command the system to shut down. Please wait, shutdown still in progress. Shutdown has completed. It is now safe to turn off your computer or restart the system by pressing Ctrl-Alt-Delete. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of a very similar shutdown message from the Windows NT era, like the NT 3 and 4 era, and it reminds me of the non-ACPI shutdown completion message on Windows 2000 that you get if you log off the system user. Okay, it seems to handle a warm reset properly. I don't know what else I expected for it to do besides properly reset the system. Hey, we have our boot manager menu. So we'll go ahead and command the system to boot. That's something we'll probably do here shortly, is go into the system settings and add the other hard disk, the Seagate ST41650N, as a bootable device in our boot manager menu. So that way I can boot up into Windows for Workgroup 3.11. What is this? Input signal out of range. Press any key or enter to continue. I see something referencing a Sound Blaster Pro device driver. Audio VDD.sys. I have no idea what it's trying to tell me here because the monitor is completely out of adjustment. Oh, now you want to auto adjust to something sensible. Oh, now we have the Introducing OS2 tutorial on the screen. There we go. Using OS2 will help you learn how to use OS2. To learn how to use the mouse, press the space bar to bypass using the mouse and begin the tutorial. Press page down or click on the right arrow button. To close the tutorial, press F3 or click on quit. Okay, scrolls one screen forward, one screen backward, quits the tutorial. Oh, Okay, what just popped up? Oh, we've got the desktop environment coming up behind us. It appears we are running in 8-bit color mode because everything is very dithered. Moving an object, copying an object, adding launchpad objects, deleting launchpad objects, formatting a diskette, locking up, or shutting down. Everything is very dithered looking. So, first thing I'm going to do is take a trip into System Setup. Font palette. Create utility diskettes, WinOS 2 setup. You see System. Before we put, yeah, we're running in 256 color mode. Yeah, I was about to say, before we put this thing back in its official home, we need to set the display resolution down at 800 by 600. Because the monitor that this system typically has attached to it will not run at 1024 by 768. Print screen, logo, general, title, system, screen. Okay, we only have one resolution getting offered to us, 1024 by 768, 256 colors. Alrighty, as you can see, as you might be able to see, I've got one of the room lights on because now we are going to install the IBM Bonus Pack software. We can see here, installation utility system information tool. This is what we're going to start with, pack number 1 here. So, going to open it up, take out diskette number 1, place it into the floppy drive, and we're going to access that floppy drive. Drive A. So, let's see, we have a README file here. We probably ought to check out. We hope you enjoy the complimentary applications provided to you in the bonus pack for OS 2. For information on using the application, see the online help screens and README files provided with the applications. This README contains the latest information available. It also contains helpful hints found in our testing. That tells you information about the README, it looks like. So, let's see, we have an install.command, we have an infohighway.command, and we have a sysI.command item here, and we also have an rspddi.exe item here. What happens if we start this install.command file? Oh, here we go. Bonus pack installation utility for OS 2. And isn't that a fun looking picture right there? Alright, product, HyperWorks, FaxWorks, HyperAccess, Internet, MViewer, OS 2, CIM, IBM Person-to-Person, System Information Tool, Video In, and IBM Works. The first thing I see here is IBM Internet connection for OS 2. So it would make sense that we start with that first things first. So I'll grab diskette 1. Insert that into the floppy drive and hit OK. And this will probably give us our TCP/IP stack and everything to go along with that, and make use of a local area network. Yep, here we go. TCP/IP stack. Alrighty, installation completed successfully. Shut down your system from the desktop and reboot. So let's have a look at the IBM Multimedia Viewer. Please enter the bonus pack. Okay. It's the very last diskette in pack number 4 of the bonus pack. IBM Multimedia Viewer Video In for OS 2. Alright, Your old config.sys file has been renamed. Hit OK. Congratulations. Go to the desktop, shut down, and restart your system to use multimedia. Let's go IBM Works. Please insert the bonus pack for OS2 diskette labeled IBM Works Disk 1 into Drive A. Oh, hello. IBM Works installation. Creating IBM Works desktop. And as you can see, a folder just appeared in the very top left of the screen. Requested components of IBM Works are successfully installed. Elapsed time was 7 minutes and 48 seconds. Your config.sys file has been modified. You must reboot your system to activate the changes. Copyright 1992 to 1994, version 3.01. Let's check. Let's just go through these. Disk information, logical drives, A, B, C, D, and E, physical disks. Disk 1, 1350 megabytes. Disk 2, 992 megabytes. Partitions installed on drive. Pair of unallocated partitions. Starting and ending CHS is 0. We have a boot manager partition saying this boot manager is inactive. And then we have an installable file system partition, and it gives us the associated logical drive, and if we click that, we can actually view the logical drive information. HPFS partition, 1.28 gigabytes free, and 512 bytes per sector. Partition 2 is a single 16-bit FAT partition. C and D we just looked at. No, don't maximize that. B, 1.2 megabyte 5¼ inch diskette drive. 1.4 and A is 1.44 megabyte 3½ inch diskette drive. The FAT file system. Disk size is 1.82 megabytes, so this is an XDF formatted diskette. Volume name of Works 04. Keyboard information, 101, 102 key enhanced. Code page 437. Says the typematic rate is 18 characters per second and the delay is 90 milliseconds. Interesting. Memory address range is recognized by this system. System RAM, video RAM, adapter ROMs, and system ROM. And then memory address range under 16 megabytes. Then it gives us this big block of system RAM here. Installed memory amounts. Total amount of memory detected, 15,732K. Total bytes of memory locked, 4.3 meg. Total amount of virtual memory free, 1.2 gigabytes. Page size is 4K. Huh. Interesting. Model and processor information. Expansion bus type is an ISA or AT bus. In this case it's ISA. Does not know the processor or math coprocessor. I can tell you the processor is an Intel 80486DX clocked at 50 megahertz. The math coprocessor is on board the main. Just says model is FC. Submodel is 81. It says the BIOS revision is 00 and the BIOS ROM is dated January 15th of 1988. Mouse information, serial mouse on COM1. We've got 2 buttons. Tells us our sensitivity, vertical and horizontal scaling factors, the mouse handedness, and the double click interval. Operating system info. OS2 version 2.3. No, we're running Warp 3. Virtual DOS support is enabled. Tells us our time slice duration for preemptive multitasking. Maximum wait time 3 seconds. System timer interval is 31 milliseconds. Okay. Window list. Okay, interesting. Component CSD levels. For more information about Netfinity, call this phone number. I don't recommend calling that. Config.sys. Looks like this tells us basically the history of the config.sys file. Or at least when entries to it were added. Parallel and serial port information. Logical serial devices, COM2. Tells us we have one physical serial port. Printer information, no printer drivers are loaded. Video subsystem information. We have an 8514A adapter. PS2 color display 8514. 1 meg of video memory. 256 color, 1024 by 768. Tells us our screen size is 283 by 212 millimeters. Get the screen resolution adjusted down to 800 by 600. Get the sound working, get the TCP/IP support working and whatnot. But yeah, I think that will do it for now. So I'll get the camera readjusted for probably the last time in this video, and then we'll sign off. Well, it's a day later or thereabouts, maybe a couple days later, and as we can see here, I've pretty clearly got the system set back down and plunked down in its little, not exactly a cubby hole here, but it's definitely put back into its rightful home, and it's all hooked back up and everything. Got her all cabled up, and she's up and running. Got 2 or 3 of the items on my want to do punch list knocked out. I have the appropriate display drivers loaded, so it will so that way I can run it with this CRT monitor here, which only supports up to 800 by 600 progressive scan resolutions. If you try to run this thing on an interlaced resolution, it ends up, if you try to run this thing on an interlaced resolution, what ends up happening is it goes into a weird out of synchronization state and the picture rolls horizontally. So yeah, this, and not only that, but none of my other monitors will manage to do anything useful with that resolution whatsoever. Yeah, I got the ATI Mach 8 drivers installed on the system and up and running. I got the internet connection. What I ended up having to do is I had to burn a CD here. I had to burn a CD for the Warp 3 Connect. I had to burn a Warp 3 Connect CD. There's that Tranquil Melody CD. I think that might be a Soundgarden album. I was listening to that earlier on this system. So that way I could install the MPTS, or multi-protocol transport stack. And really the only protocol of concern is TCP/IP. But so I had to burn a Warp 3 Connect CD so that way I could get the MPTS stack installed on the system. But once I got that done, I configured my network settings on the system, and just like that we had working internet connectivity. As we can see here, I am connected to IRC on this system. So yeah, I'm definitely connected to IRC on this machine. Yeah, but I've got that, and I've got the IBM Web Explorer, IBM's own little web browser, opened up to one of my little websites here. And this website will load on pretty much anything, and this is the most bare bones this is just about the most bare bones of a web browser as you can get. So, in fact, even the new version of the site will load reasonably fine on here since it's all HTML and CSS. Obviously, stuff like background colors doesn't work, but what do you expect from a web browser that was made in 1994? In fact, if we go help product information, or well, 1994, 1995, but still pretty early days of the internet. Yeah, systems all back up and running. And I've even got, and I was using 10.014. Yeah, I was using the built-in FTP server on here. The multi-protocol transport stack includes a whole bunch of different network service daemons that can be configured and run, including, among other things, an FTP server. I was using the built-in FTP server, so that way I could log into this thing over the network from anything running Cloudzilla, i.e. Theseus, and leapfrog some files over this thing, so that way I didn't have to sneakernet them over to my Dell Dimension 2400 and then create floppy diskettes, which I then feed into the system. So, but I was able to use the web browser to download an IRC client known as OpenChat 2, and that is what you see running here. I also tried another IRC client known as something else, but that client was a lot more clunky to navigate through than OpenChat. So yeah, just going to minimize these to the background. I think we can terminate the web browser. Do you really want to exit the Web Explorer? Yeah, another screen full of information. And then we have a status window here. I'll probably either cut this section of video out or blur the screen. So here we have the desktop. I have the Wall Street theme applied. This OS2 is definitely a lot chattier on the hard disks than Windows was for the time. Yeah, I've got the Wall Street theme applied to the system, and this is what my desktop is looking like right now. Down here we've got various option buttons such as lockup, find, shutdown, and window list. We'll be taking the shutdown option here shortly. So I did manage to get the sound card kind of working under OS2. I think what I have to do is I pretty much have to kickstart the card using one of my DOS boot diskettes with the Sound Blaster Vibra 16 drivers loaded on it. And then once I've got the card initialized there, then I can boot back up into OS2, and the Vibra 16 drivers in OS2 will pick up the card and take it from there, and then I will have sound under OS2. So yeah, that is a plug-and-play card, and seems that some plug-and-play devices work just fine under OS2 Warp 3. Others do not. I imagine if I put Warp 4 on here, it would work fine, but this isn't Warp 4, and I don't have a copy of Warp 4 to hand. I could try putting Warp 4 on here, see if it fixes some of the bugs we ran into, such as it only offering SCSI ID1 drives for as installation target disks and stuff like that. But yeah, I think for the most part I've got this thing just about squared away. The only thing I haven't tried to figure out how to do is boot up into, configure the boot manager to allow me to boot off of the Seagate ST41650N drive and boot up into my Windows for Workgroups 3 install. It's the only thing I haven't messed around with, and it's kind of low on the priority list. So a few things I really like about OS2 is it's preemptive multitasking, not cooperative. So if a program locks up on me, I can usually get out of it just fine. But one thing I have noticed is if that program has obtained a lock on the keyboard or mouse, and the system, if that program has obtained a lock on the keyboard or mouse and that program stops responding, locks up, packs its bags and goes home, I kind of lose control of the system at that point, but I can get around it by hitting Control-Alt. I'm sometimes able to get around it by hitting Control-Alt-Delete here, which will cause OS2 to perform a clean reboot. But in the rare event that that doesn't work, I just kind of have to go over here, punch the reset button, or hit the power switch. So, but yeah, I think in a bit I'll do an update video showing the progress of this install. Yeah, I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and sign off of IRC on this system and shut this thing down. Go ahead and terminate our session. Shut down the FTP server. Now I can type. If I go to an OS2 prompt, let's see. Yeah, if I go to an OS2 prompt and I type shutdown, it will go ahead and shut down the computer. But it gives me basically a quasi-confirmation here. I get a message that pops up that says, this session may contain an active program. Do you want to close the session without saving your data? If I hit yes, the system will shut down. If I hit no, the system will not shut down. So, yeah, I avoided the shutdown, so I'm just going to go ahead and get out of that. OS2 window. I was extracting some files, so I'm going to exit out of that. Then I'll take the graphical shutdown option. If I hit shutdown, it beeps at me and says, are you sure that you want to close all windows and active programs and shut down your system? I'll click OK, and it goes ahead, shuts the system down. So now it says, shutdown is completed. It is now safe to turn off your computer or restart the system by pressing Control-Alt-Delete. The mouse will still move around, but the system is at this point completely halted. So I'm going to turn off the monitor first and then shut the computer down, because this monitor, I'm not going to say, it doesn't exactly have a cascade resonance event if you shut the system down, while the monitor, when you shut the system down or hit reset, while the monitor is running at 800 by 600, but let's just put it this way, it's not advisable that you do that. And if you do that, and it does have a horizontal collapse, you best not turn the monitor back on for about 30 minutes or so. Or else the result will be a bright flash and a very loud pop from the high voltage section. So, shut the monitor down. Point the camera at something to encourage it to readjust its white balance. And then come over here to the computer, come around the back, we can hear it better, and shut down. There we go. System is shut down. And with that, that will finally be the end of this very, very, very long video, at least for me. I don't know what the final runtime is going. I don't know what the final runtime is going to come out to. Once I get this edited down and everything, but I'm pretty sure it is going to be the thick end of a couple hours. So, anyways, I'm just gonna freehand the outro here. So, anyways, this is TCG Productions. Peace out, guys. Peace out. And I will see y'all in the next one. I don't know why I'm recording this other than I am, and because I can. Oh, great, now I can't find out which way is pin 1 on the controller card. There we go. I can probably just cut this whole part out and stick it onto the end as a blooper reel item. But why would I do that? There we go. Hope I didn't. That may have just wrecked some pins. Nope. The SCSI controller cards are things best plugged in outside of the computer in question, so we don't do stuff like this.